It seems the snake is making his move. That doesn't surprise me, gather the others. I want to make sure he doesn't intrude on our lands. Troublesome, but I'm on it. The sounds of battle were everywhere. The young Hyuuga waited safely and well hidden from view, hoping against hope that the signal would never happen as he waited frantically nearby. His thoughts drifted back to earlier when he was summoned to see his uncle and guardian since his father's death. Flashback. Niji quickly approached his uncle's office, seeing many of the Hyuuga guards getting ready for the impending battle that lay ahead. Niji had suited up in the traditional Hyuuga armor, ready to fight by his uncle's side. Like all the branch members of the Hyuuga, who fight to protect the main branch as they had for many years. Hayashi Hyuuga stood taking his last look at the battle plans that had been devised within such a short amount of time. Already dressed in his battle gear, he noticed his nephew. Immediately seeing that his nephew was growing to look more like his twin brother Hisashi each day. My lord, you summoned me? Niji bowed in greeting. Niji, you will not accompany me into battle, Hayashi stated calmly. What? But, my lord. Please, Niji, that is my order and I will not change it, Hayashi thundered. Niji clenched his fists tightly, but relented, keeping his head down as he was still knelt before his uncle. Niji, please stand up for me, would you? Hayashi stated softly. Niji looked up at his uncle and immediately stood up, looking at his uncle that reminded him so much of his late father. Niji, you do know who we as a clan are up against? I very much doubt we will win this battle. I want you to stay behind and await my signal. If that happens, I need you to take Hinata and escape. Both of you are precious to me, Hinata my daughter, and you, my brother's son, Hayashi stated with a small smile as Niji looked unsurprised. Please, Niji, I am trusting you to take Hinata with you, and you are to journey to the next human village in Wind Country. You must disguise yourselves, do you understand? Yes, uncle, I will obey your wishes. Thank you, Niji. I want both of you to survive and find safety. I have made sure provisions are ready for you in the secret escape route. I have instructed Ko to ensure both of you escape safely. Niji nodded his head as his uncle pulled him to him. Niji looked, seeing his uncle looking at him. One of the man's hands were on each of his shoulders, a small smile was showing upon his lips. Niji was shocked at the show of emotion that had now adorned his uncle's normally stoic face. You have grown into a fine young man, Niji. I know your father would be as proud as I am. I want you to look after Hinata for me, as I haven't been the father that I should have been. Stay safe and hidden, Niji. Ko is guarding Hinata and will be awaiting you as to my instructions. If I should fall in battle, I will send one of my small bird summons. If that happens, I will instruct it to seek you out. Niji once more nodded his head in agreement, feeling all sorts of emotions from anger, fear and sadness at what was happening. My lord, it is time, one of the Hyuuga guards announced as he burst into the room. I will be there shortly, Hayashi commanded. The guard left as quickly as he arrived, as Niji kept his gaze upon his uncle, who gathered his weapons and attached them to his body. Protect my daughter for me, Niji. Your journey will be treacherous, seeing as we were the last human village within Fire Country. Who is this snake attacking us, and why, uncle? The demon snake Orochimaru. He is after the secrets of our clan and bloodline. But what of Dash? Being destroyed as we speak, apart from the few scrolls that I have stored within a storage seal, along with money that you will need, that I will now give to you, Niji. Hayashi did a few hand signals, placing a large storage scroll within his hands. You can store many things inside it, you know the hand seals, don't you? Yes, of course. I leave this with you. Take care, Niji, and thank you for all you have done. Niji bowed his head as he watched his uncle, who looked so much like his late father, disappear from his view and head into battle. Niji hoped that his uncle would return safely, but judging from his uncle's words, it seems his uncle had resigned himself to his fate. Facing death in battle was a great honor for any clan leader. End of flashback. Niji kept glancing around nervously. The sounds of battle outside the gates were haunting. Many of the villagers were seeking refuge, or trying to leave as the battle grew closer. Within the next few minutes, his heart clenched as a small white bird flew towards him, circling once, then disappearing in a small white cloud of smoke, signaling that his uncle had fallen, and now it was down to him to ensure he and his cousin escaped the slaughter that lay ahead. Hinata had been pacing her room in worry as Ko stood outside her closed door. The sounds of battle were clearly heard in the distance that made her heart clench at the unnecessary bloodshed of her people that fought to protect their home village. Ko had entered inside her room earlier, having placed male servant clothes within her arms, instructing her to dress quickly and not to ask questions. Hinata nervously removed her deep purple silk kimono, and hurriedly dressed in the baggy servant robes. She quickly braided her long indigo hair after removing the many hair ornaments that had been specifically placed that she deeply hated. Once she was fully dressed, just placing the servant's sandals upon her feet, she glanced at herself in the mirror, noticing how different she looked. Her door burst wide open, revealing a nervous Ko who looked upon her in concern, which made Hinata look on nervously for news, feeling nothing but fear and dread. We must leave now, Hinata-sama, Ko announced as calmly as he could. What? Please, Hinata-sama, no questions, we must escape now, Ko ordered firmly. Hinata was stunned speechless as she blinked at the order. Nervously, she glanced around her room, her eyes widening in horror at seeing fires and smoke along with cries and shouts of despair outside. Her thoughts were broken as Ko grabbed her and pulled her out of her room, guiding her down the long, elegant hallways. Using his eyes, he made certain no one saw them as they got to their destination within the compound. Ko finally breathed a slight sigh of relief, seeing Niji nervously awaiting them. Their eyes met, each of them apart from Hinata knew the circumstances of why they were here. Niji-sama, I trust you have everything? Yes, Ko, Lord Hayashi told me his wishes. I am presuming you're ready, as I gather we don't have much time. You're right, we had better go. What is going on, Nisan? Hinata-sama, your father has fallen in battle. He has left you in my hands from now on, and right now we need to escape before we get caught by the enemy, Niji stated calmly. Hinata felt her heart break at hearing her cousin's words. Although she was never close to her father, she still loved him dearly. Her cousin and Ko were now all she seemed to have left as she fought back the tears, nodding her agreement, trying to rein in how scared she was. We had better go. I can see the enemy about to enter. Shit! Let's hurry. All three ran down another corridor, then down some steps leading to the basement, locking the large firm door behind them. Ko carefully moved some barrels containing expensive wines that hid another door that he quickly unlocked with a key he held in his hands. Niji-sama, Hinata-sama, quickly, this way, Ko whispered loudly. Hinata was pulled inside by Niji, who had lit a torch as Ko closed and locked the door behind them, quickly making their way down the narrow corridor that seemed to go on for miles, hoping and praying it hadn't yet been discovered by the enemy. The silence was deafening as their footsteps echoed around them, making their shadows dancing along the walls that flickered with the flames from the torch Niji was carrying. Niji saw the end of the corridor and signaled Ko to help move what seemed to be a large boulder that was wedged tight. The distant echoes alerted them that their village, their home, was now overrun with the enemy and time was of the essence. Niji and Ko managed to move the boulder as they each stepped outside, immediately noticing that it had now grown dark. Both Niji and Ko placed the boulder back, knowing that they didn't have much time and needed to move. Niji noticed two horses that were there ready for them. Niji felt his emotions surface. His uncle had most probably envisioned what would happen and had this all prepared and ready for them. Niji grabbed Hinata by the hand and began to approach one of the horses, lifting Hinata upon it as he also climbed after making sure she was in front of him. Ko had already mounted the other horse, ready for Niji to take the lead as he held the rear. Let's go, we need to get as far away as possible before we are found by the enemy, Ko stated, breaking Niji from his thoughts. Agreed, from here on out keep your bloodline active, Niji instructed as Ko nodded his agreement. Both of horses began to gallop away, heading north, knowing that now they would be open targets for the many demons that ruled most of the lands outside of the human village they had known most of their lives. What was left of their village now lay in ruins amongst the dying flames of fire and rich black smoke that was once a happy human village to those that called it their home. The distant smells of smoke stirred within each demon's senses, each glancing at the direction it was coming from. Their spies had informed them that Orochimaru had taken an interest in the only human village left within Fire Country. The smell of smoke confirmed that the last human village had fallen to the demon snake, and they wondered why he attacked it in the first place. The small group of 5 had waited on the sidelines, knowing that trespassers could enter their lands. Naruto, your orders? Shikamaru questioned. Use your shadows and scout up ahead, report back what you find. The rest of you, remain here, the blonde ordered, staring in one direction. Shikamaru nodded as he disappeared within his shadows, leaving the rest to stand around and await further instructions as each of their eyes glowed amongst their surroundings. Niji glanced at his cousin, seeing the tears flow freely from her lilac-tinted eyes. From here on out it was just them, and she was the only one who didn't bear the cursed seal that all branch members of the Hyuuga clan had upon their foreheads. He knew many dangers lay ahead for them now, especially knowing that now they were in demon territories. Hinata-sama, I know you are upset, but you must remain strong. We are nowhere near safe, and you are the only remaining Hyuuga that is unsealed. Hinata listened to her cousin, knowing that he was in fact right. She was now the last of the main branch and subconsciously shivered at knowing what happens if any of the main branch Hyuuga were to fail to elude capture for their eyes. Here, take this and make sure to wrap it around your forehead, Niji continued, handing her a roll of bandages. Hinata took it as she quickly unwound them and wrapped them carefully around her forehead. Niji also gave her a hooded cloak to keep her warm from the impending cold winds from the north. The seasons were changing. As autumn was approaching, the long summer nights would now slowly disappear as the winds would pick up, especially on their perilous journey to one of the handfuls of human villages left in their world. Orochimaru was a snake demon who was obsessed with immortality and experiments that he loved to do, upon not only humans but his own demon brethren themselves. He had many slaves that served him in fear both of human and demon descent. Niji had heard many stories that passed through their small home village of that slippery snake, and what he had done. Niji gritted his teeth, his anger raging inside of him that he, Ko, and his cousin were now running for their very lives. He wondered how this journey would play out now that they had been traveling for an hour nonstop so far. They had not encountered any dangers, but he knew it wouldn't be long until they did. They were now well within the lands that were ruled by various demons. He had heard that the Kyuubi Lord ruled somewhere here. He had his own lands that he ruled amongst other demon clans that stood by his side, and he shivered at what would happen if they encountered him and his demon brethren. He had heard that the Kyuubi was not only powerful but had a certain dislike for humans, and never sought them out. Niji-sama, we are being pursued, Ko stated in a hushed tone. Shit! How long till we encounter them? About a mile. It seems they picked up our trail and they seem to be gaining on us, so I presume it won't be long until they are upon us, Ko answered, awaiting further instructions. Niji was panicking inside, cursing his uncle inwardly for having placed such a burden on his shoulders and knowing they were now sitting ducks in unexplored terrain that was not resided by their own kind. Niji-sama, take care of Hinata-sama, Ko whispered softly. Niji's eyes widened as he turned hastily to face the man he has known since he was young, who cared for his cousin as though she was his own. Ko! And no, please don't leave, Hinata pleaded with a pained cry. Niji-sama, please look after her in my absence, and keep her safe. Niji felt conflicted, but seeing the man's eyes harden with his own resolve, he knew he couldn't talk the man out of it, even knowing it would lead to his death. He felt his cousin struggle within his arms, feeling his own arm keeping hold of her tightly against him. The beauty tried desperately to get to her guardian to beg and reason with him not to be so foolish. Niji gritted his teeth as he felt her nails dig into his skin as she fought hard for release, leaving him no other alternative but to press a pressure point, rendering her unconscious, feeling immense guilt at doing so. Ko, you know you don't have to do this, Niji reasoned, letting his emotions finally show. Ko stared at him, a rare smile adorned his face as he glanced to the now sleeping princess that he had taken care of since she was just a toddler. I know, but it's the only way, and time is not on our side, I'm afraid. You don't have much time, but hopefully I can give you more if I can hold them off long enough. Ko, if you manage to follow and catch us up, Niji stated, holding back his own tears. I will if I don't, however, tell Hinata-sama that I gladly died to protect her and her future, Ko stated, hiding his falling tears from Niji. I will, but I hope that's not going to happen, Niji answered solemnly. Ko chuckled, knowing that Niji couldn't bring himself to say goodbye to him. He watched him signal the horse to gallop off into the distance, knowing that this would be the last time he saw both the princess of the Hyuuga clan and the prodigious nephew who would hopefully protect their clan in future in his place. Ko turned away, wiping his falling tears as he prepared to face their pursuers, knowing his own death would certainly be the outcome. The group of demons awaited further instructions from their leader, knowing that their terrain was now being invaded by not only humans but Orochimaru's forces as well. Shikamaru stood watching his blonde leader, knowing that he was raging at what he had just reported. Well? Shikamaru bravely asked, knowing that an order needed to be given now for them to act upon it. Fuck. How dare they trespass on our lands? How many are there again, Shika? The blonde questioned, again his eyes a deep red. 3 humans and 6 followers of the snakes, Shikamaru answered in a bored tone. TCH, well, what do you want us to do, Bill? Sasuke finally snapped, hating to be kept waiting, knowing that Orochimaru's lackeys had the audacity to breach their lands without a care. Fine. Shikamaru, take 10-10 and round up the humans and bring them back to base for questioning. Do not let them escape. If they give you trouble, disable them, but don't kill them. Shikamaru nodded his head as he signaled 10-10 to accompany him in getting the 2 humans. The blonde sighed, reining in his anger as much as he could, but knowing it was futile, as he nodded to Sasuke and Sakura to follow him to encounter the snake's lackeys, knowing blood would spill soon. The QB within him was chuckling at being able to release his claws upon the demon filth that served the treacherous snake Orochimaru. Come on, let's go, the blonde hissed, disappearing in a flash as the other 2 followed suit. The last raspy breath of life was finally relinquished as the demon released the noble Hyuuga. Another smirked, watching the man's blood spill like water onto the ground that was now his resting place. Shall we proceed, Kabuto? Of course, since he didn't cooperate with us. Such a pity that these damn noble Hyugas would rather die than be ruled and subdued for our master. Whatever, I don't give a fuck. Don't you think we are wasting our time chasing these pussies? A female demon hissed, her long, pink-tinted hair flowing. Now, Tayuya, you were present when Lord Orochimaru gave us our orders. TCH, well, let's fucking get going then, she retorted. Kabuto grinned, getting ready to direct Hyuuga and a handful of hybrid slaves to venture forth, knowing they themselves didn't have the time to mess around, knowing they were now in Lord Kyuubi's demon lands, which was unfortunate. Alright, be on your gua. The demon Kabuto was cut off when the ground he stood on began to rumble loudly as it moved, causing him to stumble slightly as he regained his instincts, making sure to get somewhere safe to see what was going on. 3 of the demon hybrids perished within the mass of dirt and earth, suffocating them deep beneath. There his demon snake eyes saw flowing strands of candy pink hair, the color of sakura flowers that graced the many trees in season. Emerald green eyes glowed as she released her clenched fist from upon the only stable ground that remained, whereas destruction was all around them. Sakura Haruno from the Haruno clan, I presume, Kabuto announced, his voice sickeningly sweet. You're trespassing, snake, Sakura hissed, her emerald green eyes flared with anger. Kabuto raised his glasses as he took the pink-haired demon in. She was indeed beautiful, wearing a red outfit that clung to her curves. Her shoulder-length candy pink hair flowed with the breeze as she clenched her gloved fist. Her forehead was slightly larger than normal, but there was a small diamond shape present upon it. No need to be rude, my dear, we were searching for some prisoners that escaped from my lord, Kabuto reasoned. The sound of crackling could be heard a short distance behind him that made him, Tayuya, and the remaining hybrid to look behind. There stood another demon with dark raven hair, red eyes with black tomos spinning dangerously, who was looking at them. His hand were crackling with blue-colored lightning in warning. Kabuto swallowed nervously, recognizing those eyes immediately. It was the legendary Sharingan from the Uchiha clan. Sasuke Uchiha, Kabuto whispered. HN bullshit. Don't you mean you're trying to recover any survivors from the human village your master decided to destroy? Sasuke sneered. Kabuto clenched his fists in fury, knowing that his lie had been seen through, and their real intentions were known. A flash of yellow appeared before them. The sudden surge of killing intent made each of them tremble as the blonde lord glared at them where they each stood. Why you? How dare you step on my lands for your slimy bastard of a master? Naruto hissed, his eyes flashing dangerously, ready to kill at any moment. Kabuto stood his ground as Tayuya remained motionless, feeling the power of each of the 3 demons before her, knowing that without her own team present, they was seriously outnumbered. Kabuto decided that a retreat was in order, even though he knew his lord wouldn't be happy. Naruto watched as all 3 disappeared in a plume of smoke, his anger still boiling at the audacity of them trespassing his lands. He growled in distaste at their retreat, but was glad they had left his presence as his anger began to slowly dissipate. What now? Sasuke asked. Let's head back to base, Naruto answered with a sigh. Sasuke glanced towards Sakura, seeing her looking at the now dead body of one of the presumed humans that they had been chasing. Sakura. It seems he was beaten severely. He has a lot of internal bleeding. Why kill him slowly? Naruto questioned, crouching down beside her looking at the dead body. That's what I want to know, Sakura sighed, opening one of the eyelids. Sasuke stared at the body and took interest at the pupilless eyes that were silver but faded due to death. Hyuuga, Sasuke stated. What? Naruto asked, confused. He means that this man was obviously a member of the Hyuuga clan, dummy, Sakura answered. They are one of the oldest and most noble clans in the human line, so I wouldn't be that surprised if that was why that village was attacked by the snake, especially considering his obsession with experiments for power, Sasuke added. So, we have 2 humans within my land that may be from the Hyuuga clan? Let's hope Shikamaru and Tenten find them and take them to base so I can see them myself, Naruto stated calmly. What will you do? Kill them? Sakura questioned. I may. It depends on what we find out when I see them, Naruto answered. Sasuke and Sakura glanced at each other, knowing that either way both humans would have it rough and they would wish that they never stepped foot within their lands, especially since Naruto hated humans. The cool night air brushed against the many trees that was slowly changing colors due to the changing seasons. The sounds of nature had gone eerily quiet. Shikamaru and Nara sighed, knowing that their presence wouldn't be hidden for too long. He stretched out his shadows as he watched them slowly envelop the surroundings, covering them in darkness. Shikamaru had finally managed to locate where the two remaining humans were. The other was nowhere near, and he presumed with his high intellect that the third had sacrificed himself for the two that remained on the run. Signaling Tenten, they both sped up, managing to gain up on them quicker than anticipated considering they was both on horseback. But as Shikamaru glanced at the gray horse, he could see it was near exhaustion and was slowing down tremendously. The two humans were on the one horse, one seemed to be sleeping, the other was fully awake and by the looks of things, knew that they were being followed. Bringing the horse to a complete standstill, Neji glanced behind him, his eyes narrowed as he picked up on two presences up within the trees not too far away. Hinata began to stir within his arms as he chanced to glance back down at her, seeing her eyes beginning to flutter open. "Hinata-sama, you must get ready to make a run for it," Neji whispered. Hinata opened her eyes, immediately remembering everything that had took place, from her home being overrun, her father being killed, and then her guardian sacrificing himself to let them escape, made her heart break into tiny pieces. Tears flowed from her pale lilac eyes, falling down her pale cheeks and onto the arms holding her tightly against him. Neji felt each drop of her tears fall against the sleeve of his arm. He hated seeing his cousin so distraught, and knew he hadn't the luxury to comfort her, and let out his own grievances. "Get a hold of yourself, Hinata-sama, we are not safe, and we are currently situated within demon lands. You may have to run and find somewhere safe. Try to keep yourself hidden, especially now that you are the princess of our clan," Neji silently continued. "I can't lose you too, Nai-san," Hinata whimpered softly, tears continuously falling. "You must survive, Hinata. I will try to find you, but you must find a human settlement that will take you in." But. "Please, Hinata-sama, do as I ask," Neji stated firmly. Hinata flinched at his whisper tone, feeling the urgency within it, and nodded silently, knowing she couldn't argue with him any further. She felt him sigh, holding her closer to him, her heart clenched even more at the thought of going on without him, and alone. "I will keep them busy, remain on the horse and use it to escape. With just you riding him, as you are lighter than myself, you should hopefully be able to outrun our pursuers," Neji ordered above a whisper to her ears. "Hi," Hinata answered. Neji sighed, not wanting to leave his cousin to herself, but he had no choice. It was just them in unknown lands that were ruled by demons. Some of them were powerful demon lords and ladies. They were considered the 9 great demons, all of them powerful. The strongest of them all was the demon lord Kyuubi of the 9-tailed fox. Neji had heard many stories of various demons, and knew that humans like himself were no match for them. Even the Hyuuga clan knew there was no match for the demon race, but made sure not to anger them and gain their wrath. They kept to themselves throughout the years, making sure they never angered the demon clans that were allied with him. He remembered his uncle had told him that the demons had fought a war against one another, and it had divided the many demon clans against one another. Neji knew that the losses were great, and that some humans were also involved in the war. His uncle had confided that they had been asked to enter the war but had decided against it. They did, however, send aid such as supplies of medicine, food and water to their closest demon neighbors in fear of angering them further. The Hyuuga clan just wanted to live peacefully within their village, but now nothing remained. It was now destroyed by the very demons themselves. "Get ready for my signal, and don't you dare stop or look back," Neji commanded as he removed himself from the horse, making sure Hinata held the reins tightly in her hands. Shikamaru glanced over at Tenten, who had her eyes locked on the human who was now standing facing their direction. Shikamaru sighed, seeing the familiar excitement course through her features, and knew that the Hyuuga held eyes that was almost akin to the Uchiha clan's own. From what he had gathered, they had the all-seeing eyes that could see through walls and see chakra through someone's body. Shikamaru knew by the serious look in the man's eye that he was completely aware that they were present, and could feel his eyes on them. "He's mine," Shika Tenten purred, smiling devilishly at him, which made him raise his eyebrow at her. Tenten was different from the rest of them. She was a renowned demon huntress, a carrier of many magnificent weapons that she had at her disposal. One flick from her wrist would produce scroll after scroll that would produce many different arrays of weapons of various shapes and sizes. Her calm demeanor put anyone on edge that had to face her. She felt no fear and took pleasure in battle. The demon huntress, Tenten, was the only human his leader valued and listened to, and Tenten was most loyal to him and would protect him with her own life if need be. Shikamaru nodded his head in agreement, deciding to hold back within his shadows, watching the human on the horse that still had his back to him. Shikamaru was a shadow demon, which was typical of his clan. His father died in the last demon wars, as did many of his clan. Naruto took him in along with others. They were all family and protected one another and their lands from invaders. Tenten jumped down to the ground a few feet away from the man that watched her intently. His long brown hair and handsome face intrigued her, especially those pale silver eyes that contained no pupil. Neji watched as a figure dropped from the trees. His eyes took in the form, seeing clearly it was a woman in a form-fitting outfit that showed each curve she possessed. He was stunned slightly at how beautiful she looked, but knew he had to be very wary of this woman. She may be beautiful, but she also looked deadly. "Surrender now or be taken by force," Hyuuga Tenten called out. "Never, I would rather die than be taken to your master of a snake," Neji hissed, feeling his fists clenched tightly, readying himself for the fight of his life. Tenten began to smirk as her chakra flared, letting him know she was no pushover even if she was still a human. Neji still had his bloodline activated, seeing her power flare up, making him shocked, deep down knowing she would be a very tough opponent to fight against, even if by his own eyes that she was in fact a human. Neji had to admit he was very surprised. He had thought her at first glance to be a demon. His eyes briefly took in the other figure, a male and definitely not human. His dark hair was long and put up into a high ponytail. It reminded him of a pineapple fruit. His dark eyes were watching Neji's every movement. He had a tattoo on the side of his face, mostly in black signs. He stood staring but looked lazy, as if he couldn't care less. He had a black form-fitting shirt under a long white shirt fully open along with black trousers that came to just below his knees. His ears both had ear piercings. Niji looked back at the female, and she was wearing a black bodysuit with brown amulets upon each arm that reached below her elbows. On her feet were long brown open-toe boots that came to below her knees. Her dark brown hair tied neatly in buns on either side of her head. Her eyes matched the color of her hair and her lips was the color of deep red. He could feel her excitement radiate from her, causing him to swallow, knowing that it would be a tough fight up ahead. The woman was indeed beautiful and radiated confidence and love, a battle that intrigued Niji further, but he knew he had to win this no matter what. He couldn't leave his cousin alone in this world at the mercy of the demons around them. Shikamaru remained silent, his eyes glancing to the impending fight between the two and the other human mounted on the horse that had not moved since Tenten appeared. Suddenly the man quickly did something and he watched as the horse began to gallop away carrying the other human, escaping from the scene. Troublesome, he sighed out, deciding he had work to do after all. She could get your lazy demon ass moving. I will handle this one, now get going, Tenten shouted. Niji watched as something akin to shadows disappeared, knowing now he couldn't do anything to help, and prayed to every deity that his dear cousin would be able to escape and, better yet, survive this madness they had both found themselves in. Are you ready to fight, Hyuuga? Tenten purred, causing Niji to regain his senses, ready to fight. Don't mock me, Niji warned, getting ready for whatever was coming his way. A sly smile graced her red lips as she twirled around like a dancer in perfect formation. Her arms raised above her head as she spun with speed and precision. Niji could only watch, transfixed by the beautiful female, feeling his cheeks grow warm at the sight. Her body moved very suggestively, in a way that seemed to want to hypnotize him, that he bit his lips so that he could break from the bewitching spell her body seemed to seduce him with. A few puffs of smoke surrounded her, showing two long scrolls that she held in both her hands. With flick of her wrists the scrolls unraveled, revealing weapons that looked long and very sharp in both hands. The blades glistened through the darkness, each had a distinctive curve with delicate and intriguing patterns upon them. May I know your name, Hyuuga? Tenten asked politely. Niji raised an eyebrow and decided he also wanted to know her name. As long as you will permit me your name also? Hyuuga Niji is my name, Niji answered calmly. Tenten nodded, her smile grew as she spoke to inform him who she was. I am Demon Huntress Tenten, she answered. Niji gasped hearing her answer. He had heard about her from many talks from the villagers and the rare visits from visitors who had safely traveled to their village on rare occasions. He now knew that this fight wouldn't be easy as he predicted. However, he also knew he had no choice but to fight. Naruto had arrived back at his home. It was a large building, more like a fortress surrounded by the large dense forests. He had entered his throne room and was greeted by those that stood beside him in the conflict of war, and those that had come to him for sanctuary. Never had Naruto turned someone of his kind away, even letting Tenten to remain within his kingdom. Naruto sighed as he sat down in his throne, looking over the large hall where members of his growing family stood, waiting for any orders or information. Sasuke and Sakura stood to one side, Kakashi stood on the other as their blonde lord looked around the room, noticing immediately that two of his subjects were not present. His blue eyes flickered red, expecting to see both Shikamaru and Tenten with two human prisoners ready to be interrogated. Naruto sighed his frustration as he glanced at Sasuke, who was conveniently now leaning lazily against the wall. They should be back by now. Naruto growled out. No one answered as Naruto had his hands clenched into fists. Patience was not one of his best traits as a leader. Naruto immediately stood up from his throne, descending the few steps as his friends and comrades watched, awaiting instructions. Sasuke, you're with me. Sakura, remain here with Ino and have the sick bay ready in case it's needed. Kakashi, I need you to take Shino, Kiba, Sai and Choji to patrol our lands and keep me informed in case we have any further unwelcome visitors, courtesy of the bastard snake. Everyone nodded as they went off to do their given commands as Naruto headed outside with Sasuke following close behind him. Naruto closed his eyes as he let his power consume him, pinpointing where his two subjects were. Found her, Naruto announced, grabbing hold of Sasuke's arm. He teleported them away in a flash of red and yellow light. Niji was feeling exhaustion setting in as he took notice of the vast array of weapons lying around where he stood. His clan's rotation that he had just mastered had managed to protect him from the vast flurry of sharp objects that were deadly accurate and precise against him. They had been fighting each other for a good while, seeing the destruction their fight was leaving in their wake. Tenten had to admit that each of her array of weapons that she had used against him were rebounded back as a vortex of blue chakra enveloped him like a spinning blue tornado of wind that managed to shield him from her weapons. Hand-to-hand combat had also been used, and she herself was impressed by the handsome man at being able to keep up with her speed and power. She was no pushover, and the male Hyuuga had found that out all too quickly, much to his own surprise. You are quite formidable, Niji panted out. The brunette stood slightly panting herself at the slight praise of her skills and had to admit this Hyuuga was formidable as well as handsome. But she had played with the Hyuuga long enough and decided that this little battle of theirs should end. Tenten licked her plump red lips, carefully sizing up the male Hyuuga as she finally decided that he would be hers. Before Niji could even blink, he found her no longer in front of him, but behind him, pressing a sharp weapon to his neck as her breath tickled against his skin. Surrender, Hyuuga Niji, you are now mine. Niji felt his heart rate quicken as his body shivered from her own body that was closely touching his. Niji knew if he died now he couldn't find Hinata later, and relented as he felt darkness surround him. Tenten had rendered him unconscious as soon as he nodded in surrender. A flash of red and yellow appeared in front of her as Naruto as well as Sasuke stood before her, seeing the array of weapons and the damage done to the woodland around them. Sasuke took a step forward, seeing the beautiful demon huntress beside the unconscious male. I see you wanted to play with him, Tenny, Sasuke stated with a smirk. Yes, I did, and I must say that he was very interesting, Sasuke-kun. Tenten purred in delight as the raven rolled his eyes. My lord, seeing as I won against him in combat, I ask for your permission if I can have him as my pet? Tenten continued bowing before the blonde as Sasuke felt his eyes widen in surprise. I don't see why not. You have been a loyal servant to me, Tenten, demon huntress of the land of fire. You may have this one as a pet if you so wish. but he still needs to be interrogated by me," Naruto answered. Tenten bowed as she agreed to her lord's order. She couldn't wait to take the Hyuuga male back to her lair and have further fun with him. She was growing quite wet in between her legs at just the very thought of riding him in the privacy of her room. She was fed up of being one of the few without having some sort of sexual release. "You look flushed, Tenny. Was he that good?" Sasuke remarked, seeing lust in her dark brown eyes. He was everything I thought he would be and more. Besides, I can't wait to sample him further. I'm fed up of hearing you and Sakura fucking every night," Tenten remarked with a smirk. Sasuke grinned slightly, seeing the beautiful demon huntress growing aroused, and he felt slightly jealous. He was always wondering what the female temptress would be like beneath the sheets, but he knew Sakura would kill him if he tried to find out. "Where is Shikamaru and the other human?" Naruto ordered, rolling his eyes at the other two. "Shikamaru chased after the other on horseback, my lord," Tenten replied. "Sasuke, accompany Tenten back to base with the prisoner. I've located Shikamaru. I will see you back there, so I leave you in charge in my absence," Naruto ordered. Both Sasuke and Tenten bowed, watching as a flash of yellow and red occurred where their lord and leader once stood. "Come on, let's get back, I bet you can't wait," Sasuke continued. Tenten smirked as she looked down upon the sleeping Hyuuga male lying before her on the ground, licking her lips once again in hunger, and most of all lust. "No, I can't, Sasuke-kun, I can't wait until tonight," Tenten answered with a red blush on her cheeks, with a grinning Sasuke watching on intently. Shikamaru sighed, mainly in boredom. He was easily able to keep up with the feeble attempt at escape. The horse was seriously exhausted, and the small-looking male human upon it seemed to grow anxious as the horse was slowing down from the gallop. The shadow demon remained well within the trees, watching his intended target closely. He briefly wondered how Tenten was doing against the other human, but seeing how excited she was, he knew he had nothing to worry about. His senses picked up a surge of power as a red and yellow light flashed beside him, showing his leader in all his glory beside him. "Shikamaru, what is taking you so long?" the blonde questioned. "The target is down there, my lord. The horse is fully exhausted." "Let's just watch briefly for now," Naruto quietly ordered. Both demons stayed hidden within the trees, both their presences contained, to not arouse the human's suspicions. They had both continued to watch as the horse came to a stop and the human on top became panicked. A slight toothy grin appeared on Naruto's face. He really did enjoy hunting his prey. Hinata was scared out of her mind as she had the feeling she was being watched. She glanced at the horse, seeing it was fully exhausted and panting heavily. She wondered briefly how far they had traveled, and she knew just by looking at the horse she couldn't get him to continue onwards. She was growing increasingly worried about Niji, and knew she couldn't go back to him as she finally got off the horse. Still in her disguise, she took what she could from the horse and decided to continue onwards on foot. Naruto watched everything as he decided that they would make their appearance known. Signaling to Shikamaru, they both jumped down to the ground, startling Hinata as she turned to face them. Hinata was petrified as she took in both males that was stood a few feet from her. The horse had felt their presence, and managed to gallop away in fright, leaving her stranded at their very mercy. Naruto looked the human over intently, but there was something different about this human that seemed to call on his demon blood. The scent the human gave out smelt sweet and flowery, much to his confusion, but his demon side certainly reacted to this trembling human in front of him. "Surrender," he shouted out loudly in warning. Hinata trembled. She knew that her cousin had told her to escape, and she had no choice but to follow her cousin's last orders. She could not be captured at any cost. She was the princess of her clan, although under disguise as a male branch servant she couldn't be discovered. Dropping what she had on her person, she made a run for it, much to the surprise of both Shikamaru and Naruto, who let out a primal growl within him, surprising the shadow demon beside him. "Shikamaru, grab the stuff and head back to base. I will get him," Naruto ordered, as he gave chase, leaving Shikamaru to look on. Shikamaru nodded with a sigh as he went to retrieve the bags, also cursing the horse that had disappeared, knowing he had to carry the bags strewn across the floor. What a drag this turned out to be. Shikamaru groaned out, grabbing items and placing them into his shadows to take back with him. Hinata was frantic. Her heart pounded within her. She ran as fast as she could, hoping that she would be able to get away from those that were pursuing her. Never in her life had she felt so alone and afraid in the space of a few hours. She was now without her beloved family. Her father and her guardian, Ko, both gave their life for her and Niji to escape. Now Niji had done the same, fighting them for her to escape and find safety. The tears were gathering in her eyes as she fought viciously for them not to fail. All her life she had been looked down upon with disappointment. Even Niji had looked upon her as a disgrace up until only recently, after the true events of her uncle's death was revealed. Her father, although still cold towards her, had managed to rekindle her and Niji's relationship to how it was when they were children. Hinata saw Niji as her elder brother, and always had, even in the times when his eyes looked upon her with so much hate. The trees seemed to move and make rustling noises all around her that played with her already frantic nerves. Her legs were feeling tired and her lungs screamed at her to rest and take breaths of air. Hinata found her pace slowing. Her robes, that were no longer clean and pristine but dirty and ragged from the branches, had been torn but still clung upon her clothes as she fought her way through. Feeling herself slow down, she decided to take a glance behind her and to her surprise saw that she wasn't being followed as she finally slowed down, panting breathlessly. However, she failed to notice that her pursuer was directly behind her. "I told you to surrender," Naruto stated calmly. Hinata jumped and screamed as she saw the blonde in front of her. She fell on her backside, staring at him with wide eyes, petrified with fear. Naruto was however stunned speechless, seeing the small human more closely. His eyes took in the wide eyes of the human trembling before him on the ground, the color of pale lilac. They looked beautiful, as well as their face was absolutely breathtaking to him. The blonde demon lord shook his head of those thoughts, knowing that this was a male human. But somehow his demon half was calling out to him. Why was his demon side reacting? Hinata couldn't take it as she felt her head spin before passed out from the mixture of fear and exhaustion. Naruto grinned as he walked over and picked the human up in his arms. His senses were immediately overwhelmed with the sweet smell of the human scent that consumed his senses fully as he let out a groan. "Shit, what the hell?" Naruto thought as he transported them back to his domain. The blonde had arrived holding his human prisoner who was very light, his body was tingling all over which confused him deeply. Sasuke along with Tenten was waiting as well as a yawning Shikamaru who had placed the bags against the wall. The other human male was knelt on the floor hands bound as his head was low looking at the floor. Sasuke, take this one, Naruto ordered. Sasuke walked towards him, taking the small figure into his arms. His eyes widened slightly as he activated his bloodline scanning the human making Naruto eye him curiously. Naruto gathered his attentions on the male who was knelt on the floor. You are now my prisoner human, you trespassed into my lands and I want to know why, Naruto ordered. Neji stiffened as he glanced at the male who spoke and his eyes widened as he saw his cousin in the arms of the dark-haired demon male beside him. His heart rate increased in worry as he felt the sharp blade of a kunai pressed against his neck. My lord asked you a question, Neji Hyuga. It would be in your best interest to answer him and answer him truthfully. The woman he fought spoke in a warning tone. Neji Hyuga, Neji, so you're the nephew, huh? Sasuke answered, knowing certain members of the supposed Hyuga clan. Naruto looked at Sasuke who was still holding the other human that Naruto couldn't help but be drawn to. Clutching his hands into fists he tried to regain his senses as he moved his eyes to the man still knelt on the floor. I asked you a question, human, Naruto shouted. Neji flinched as he knew he needed to appeal to the demons in the room and quickly. He couldn't risk death to himself or his cousin. My name is Neji Hyuga. I am the nephew of Heishi Hyuga. Our village has fallen to the demon snake Orochimaru. My uncle Heishi asked me to escape, so myself and 2 other members of my family managed to get out through a secret escape route where horses and provisions were on standby. We were heading for Wind Country to one of the human villages that we knew was closest. However, we were being chased by pursuers and had entered your land by mistake, Neji answered. Your other member was found by us when we confronted Orochimaru's lackeys. They included Kabuto, his obsessed servant. Your colleague had already died. He was tortured, Sakura answered as she had stepped into the room. Sakura, take her to sick bay, Sasuke stated, loud enough for everyone to hear. Wait, what did you just say? Naruto asked, looking at Sasuke. I asked Sakura to take this girl to the infirmary, Sasuke replied with his eyebrow raised. You're holding information, so I suggest you tell me everything before I kill you. Where you stand, Naruto growled, leaking killing intent that had Neji choking in fear. Neji was sweating. They had now discovered Hinata was a female, and soon they would discover she was in fact the princess of their clan, and there was nothing Neji could do but tell the truth and hope they would both be allowed to survive. You're holding information, so I suggest you tell me everything before I kill you. Where you stand, Naruto growled, leaking killing intent that had Neji choking in fear. Neji was sweating. They had now discovered she was a female, and soon they would discover she was in fact the princess of their clan, and there was nothing Neji could do but tell the truth and hope they would both be allowed to survive. The entire room grew silent. No one moved, seeing their blonde leader tremble with fury. They understood why Naruto disliked humans, and knew they had to walk on eggshells when his fury peaked like this. Naruto's parents were well loved by all the demons, their parents and own clans included. They were extremely loyal to their friends, a trait that their son had tried to follow to this day. But during the demon war, both his parents were betrayed and butchered by not only demons but the humans as well. They had already allied themselves with the enemy they were fighting. The humans had lured his parents' group into a trap where they were taken by surprise and shown no mercy as their lives were taken without remorse. Only Kakashi Hatake, a well-renowned dog demon who was loyal to Minato and Kushina, survived the massacre, but just barely. When Naruto found out, he was distraught, and when told the circumstances of what had happened by Kakashi, his anger never relinquished. To him, only his fellow loyal demons mattered. Only those he trusted were allowed sanctuary within his lands, his home. The only person he broke this rule for was Tenten, who he had met on a bloody battle scene a few years prior. Flashback. The battle had long been over when the small group had arrived. The skies were dark with distinctive shades of red and deep orange, signaling that the night would soon set in as the sun was setting in the far distance. They had heard of the impending battle that had raged on for days. Even some humans from other countries and villages had now joined into their war. The surroundings were grim just looking at a distance, and Naruto felt his anger build at what he was seeing. The howling winds were all they could hear. By the looks of the carnage all around them, it had been a one-sided massacre that even made the great Lord Kyuubi's stomach turn. The stench of death and decay overpowered their senses as they took in the surroundings that showed them how bloody the battle had been. Familiar crests of clans had been torn and bloody but were still noticeable to Naruto and a select few that he brought with him. The war had taken its toll on everyone he held dear, including his beloved mother and father, who were lured into a trap and then ruthlessly betrayed and massacred by their enemies. It had only been a few weeks since then. His heartbreak had given into anger and distrust. The chaos and destruction around him brought home the horrors of war firsthand, as he saw the decaying corpses littered around the surroundings, getting Kakashi, Sasuke, and Shikamaru to search the perimeter and bury the dead of those they knew as a mark of respect. Each of them had lost someone close, from friends, parents, even siblings, so each understood loss very well and gave each other comfort as the war carried on around them. They fought to protect what they held dear from other demon clans that were invading their lands. Lord Naruto, Sakura shouted, standing a few feet from him where a few bodies were laid out. Naruto was shaken out of his thoughts as he walked over to his friend and comrade. He saw her looking over a body that looked female. His blue eyes glanced over, noticing the subtle up and down movements signaling to him that this person was still surprisingly alive. She's alive, my lord, and she's human, Sakura stated, watching the blonde's reaction. Naruto took a good look, seeing the heavily injured woman and torn clothing exposing parts of her body that were covered in blood. He also saw the signs of infections from deep wounds upon her arms and legs, as well as rope tied around each of her wrists and ankles. He glanced upon her feverish face, taking notice of her pale white skin with flushed red cheeks. Her bloodied forehead dripped with sweat. Eyes flickered open as empty scrolls were strewn beside her that made him finally understand who this person was. She was the demon huntress of Fire Country. He had heard of her battles throughout the lands, mainly going after bounties on rogue demons that preyed on the weak and vulnerable. He was confused as to why this female human was now severely injured, surrounded by dead bodies that fought in a battle of war. To his understanding, she wasn't allied to any side of the ongoing war that had grown immense these past few weeks, spreading like a disease in its wake. He took notice of her eyes that flickered open, taking in the dark eyes that were glazed over, staring at him intently, as if she knew he was looking down at her. What happened here? Naruto asked, wondering if she would tell him. A massacre, he heard her pant out in pain. How come you're injured, demon huntress? I thought you only collected bounties from rogue demons? Sakura's eyes widened, looking at the female beside her, as she had assessed her wounds but did not proceed any further unless Naruto gave her orders to. Sakura Haruno from the Haruno clan. Their symbols were Sakura trees in bloom. They were a proud clan of demons. Her father was the head of the clan with strong allies including Naruto's family and Sasuke's. Sakura was their only daughter, and she had trained hard each day. When her parents were butchered along with many of her clan members, Sakura wanted to get even stronger. She had sought out Tsunade Senju to train her, and was accepted and had been taught for many years by Tsunade, the slug princess and master in medical procedures. She was as good as her master herself, if not more, after all the studying and training she had done under her. Seeing an injured person laying before her, whether it was demon or human, made her instincts scream at her to attend to the wounds, but she knew she couldn't unless Naruto gave her orders to. The battle was immense, so much bloodshed, no prisoners were taken and no honor given, the wounded woman panted. Naruto grit his teeth, understanding what she was getting at. The winning side decided no prisoners, and those that surrendered were tortured and killed nonetheless, without a shed of dignity or honor that was sacred to all demon clans throughout. Naruto glanced at the woman that had now passed out from her wounds, and he turned to Sakura, who looked up at him. See to her wounds and bring her back with us, Naruto ordered as he walked away, leaving Sakura looking on stunned. Naruto that day had somehow came to respect the demon huntress Tenten, allowing her to heal within his home and allowing her sanctuary within his lands that she grew comfortable within, and had remained, deciding to stay and fight beside him and his friends who had slowly looked upon her like she was one of them. Flashback ends. However, his respect fell towards Tenten only and no other human. He distrusted them immensely, and seeing the trembling form of the male Hyuuga before him, he could sense that the man was holding back vital information. Information that he needed to know. He had his home and lands to protect as well as those that he looked on as family, and he had promised to look after them no matter what. Naruto hated those that would deceive him no matter the circumstances. His home was a sanctuary to friends and allies that he considered family, and if this human had somehow brought danger through his lies, he would sever his head from his body without a single care or remorse. Did you go deaf, human? I asked you a fucking question. So, tell me the fucking truth. Naruto roared. Tenten gripped Niji harshly by his hair, pulling it back hard as her sharp kunai pressed even more into his skin, producing running trickles of blood. A pained grunt escaped from him as he tried to breathe through the immense chakra leaking out of the blonde demon in front of him. He knew he had no choice but to submit. Elsewhere, Otogekure. Two figures had walked the narrow hallways towards the room they knew their master was waiting in. The dark hallways were filled with dim lighting from the flickering flames of lit torches. There was no silence as they continued walking down the long narrow hall with the sounds of cries, screams and anguished pleading that could be heard from one closed door. It was one of the many rooms holding the many prisoners they had captured. Another room had sounds of pain, moans and screams coming from another. Hyuuga shivered knowing what was going on in that room, as well as a few others that littered the stronghold. Females that had been captured, whether human or demon in origin, were selected and used as breeding whores by her master. He would select only his most loyal warriors of his large army to partake in their lust and desires to breed newborn babies that he could harness and cultivate into a growing army that would make him grow more powerful. Hyuuga stiffened as she heard the female screams of those that had been selected and felt a bow rise in her throat. She had seen it firsthand as her own male teammates took pleasure in raping the many female prisoners repeatedly, and felt relieved that she wasn't selected by the snake and put through that ordeal, and was always on guard. She was petrified, brought here as a child and held prisoner, as well as other children that had been captured by the snake demon. Her life was within a steel cage for a couple of years until she was selected to be experimented on, as well as others. The pain she endured hurt like nothing she had ever experienced. No one was coming to save her from what she was told. Her family had already perished, and her life was now forfeit to the slimy snake she hated with every ounce of her demon blood running through her veins. Her thoughts broke as soon as she came to a set of double doors which held the snake demon Orochimaru inside. Kabuto opened the door, seeing his master look at the new set of prisoners that was stood in a line chained as he eyed every one of them, licking his lips with his snake-like tongue. Sounds of sobs could be heard as the prisoners, mostly consisting of women and children, trembled petrified. My lord, Kabuto announced, kneeling before his master, followed by Hyuuga. So did you capture them? Orochimaru asked. No, my lord, we pursued them, but they had entered his territory. The Kyubis, we did follow them and killed a branch member that was traveling with them. But we were encountered by the demon lord himself as well as his two sidekicks, Kabuto reported. Orochimaru's hands clenched into fists as his eyes narrowed dangerously. His perfect planning to secure a main branch Hyuuga that bore no seal upon their forehead had failed miserably. The one he so desperately wanted was the leader's daughter, a beautiful creature, from what he had seen thanks to his serpent summons that he had summoned to spy upon her. Long indigo hair that flowed past her mid-waist, creamy skin that looked so soft and delectable. Her body was so well proportioned that it could make any male, whether he be human or demon, want to ravage her with lust. Even he was not immune to such beauty. Her eyes were beautiful and held secrets he needed to unlock. To him it was the next stepping stone to gathering the Sharingan, another bloodline he inwardly craved to have. But now his plans to secure her and have her was in ruins, all because of that bastard Hiashi. He had made sure of it, and they had escaped before they even knew what had happened. His anger boiled within him. Now the Lord Kyuubi most probably had her in his clutches and most probably knew who she was, and Orochimaru knew that the chances of himself getting the girl in his clutches would be extremely difficult. Guards, take them to the cells now, Orochimaru ordered out, his tone dark. A couple of guards appeared from the shadows bowing before him, then grabbed the chains, pulling the prisoners out of the room as Orochimaru turned and took a seat upon his chair, staring at Kabuto and Hyuuga. Any casualties? 3 hybrid soldiers, my lord, courtesy of the Haruno bitch. I see, gather your team, attest Hyuuga. I have a mission for you all to go on for me. Hinata could feel herself waking. Her body could feel something dreadful surround her. It felt so angry and full of hate that it scared her to the very core. Her eyes fluttered open, seeing a room she had never seen before, as well as a beautiful woman with short pink hair that was holding her in her arms but stood staring at one area. Her eyes followed curiously to where she was looking at and saw someone covered in red chakra that made her body tremble subconsciously. Hinata then noticed her cousin on the floor, upon his knees, with a woman stood behind him, holding a sharp weapon against his neck, and Hinata felt panic overtake her. And no, Niji and I. Hinata shouted as she struggled out of Sakura's arms, running towards her cousin, grabbing something concealed within the robes she was wearing. Everyone's eyes widened as she stood before her cousin, a blade in her own trembling hand pointed to the woman whose grip was holding her own blade upon her cousin's neck. "I'll let him go," Hinata shouted out. Tenten blinked but didn't move, hearing the distinctively female voice filling the room. "Let him go, take me instead," Hinata pleaded. Hinata couldn't help but feel her tears gather. She couldn't lose yet another member of her family. She had lost everyone she had ever loved and everything she had known, and she couldn't live on if he died as well. "So, tell me, girl. Who are you?" A male voice spoke calmly, making Hinata flinch. Hinata glanced to the side, immediately noticing that the air around them was easier to breathe and the red chakra had now fully dissipated into nothing. Her pale lilac eyes took in the man that stood a few feet from her, seeing his blonde hair and blue eyes with 3 distinct lines present upon each cheek. Her eyes had widened considerably as she instantly recognized him as the man who had caught her from her attempt at escape. She then suddenly realized that she had just compromised herself further, and knew that she couldn't lie to the beings in this room, demon or human. She had to tell the truth. "He is my cousin and my only family, please don't hurt him," Hinata pleaded, still clutching the blade in her trembling hands. The blonde stared at her trembling form, holding a sharp weapon she had concealed within those robes that, in his opinion, hardly suited her. For once in his life he was surprised by the newly discovered female, who without a care for her own safety stood, center of attention, against him. Although trembling and obviously scared out of her mind, she still stood protectively in front of the male that was her supposed family. The blonde demon was inwardly impressed by her but never showed it outwardly. "You didn't answer my question, who are you?" the blonde repeated calmly. "I am Hinata Hyuuga, daughter of the late Heishi Hyuuga," Hinata nervously answered. Everyone in the room remained quiet as Naruto listened to her soft voice. His demon senses felt intrigued by the very sound of it, as his demon heart began to beat faster within him. Naruto grit his teeth, finding what was coming over him was annoying as he tried to remain calm, even though inwardly he was growing very curious regarding this human, who was now revealed to be a girl. Hinata Hyuuga, only daughter to Heishi Hyuuga, leader of the Hyuuga clan, considered a princess. Shikamaru announced to the deathly quiet room. "Please, I beg you and myself and my cousin mean you no harm. I have lost my father and guardian as well as my C clan and B village in just a few hours. Please don't take Niji from me too," she pleaded. Naruto listened to her heartfelt pleas and his demonic chakra flared, causing the girl to back away in fear. The blonde reined his chakra back within his body. Hinata, still exhausted, had now fallen to her knees, bowing her head in submission, as the blade she had held fell to the cold hard floor below, praying to every deity possible that her cousin wouldn't die in front of her and leave her all alone in this world. "Why should I not kill him? He tried to deceive me," Naruto questioned. "Please, I will take his place if it so pleases you," Hinata stated, her voice trembling, full of emotion. Naruto blinked at her response, but felt a smirk about to appear on his lips as his thoughts raced within and managed to keep a blank face for now at least. "Hinata-sama," Niji said aloud, his hands struggling against the binds that held his hands tightly together. Tenten, Naruto called out, gaining her attention. "Yes, my lord. I have come to a decision. Your request is granted. You may take him as your pet," Naruto announced. Tenten grinned as her cheeks glowed into a pretty shade of pink as Niji stopped his struggling and blinked, registering the words that were said in complete confusion. "Thank you, my lord. I will retire to my quarters," Tenten stated calmly, but inwardly was excited. Niji didn't have time to protest when he disappeared in a puff of white smoke along with the demon huntress, leaving smirks and laughter all around the large room. Hinata saw everything happen so quickly as her stomach turned and her heart clenched painfully within her chest as her tears fell more prominently from her eyes. "And Niji?" Hinata screamed, terrified for her cousin. "My lord, what about the girl?" Shikamaru asked, curious, looking at the girl in question, who was terribly distraught. "Sakura, take the girl to be looked over and report back to me your findings," Naruto ordered. "As you wish," Sakura sighed, walking towards the sobbing girl. "Please," and Niji," Hinata sobbed brokenly. Sakura grabbed the girl's arm, pulling her to her feet, and took her away as the male demons watched on curiously. "Well, what will you do with him?" Sasuke asked, curious. "The male is now Tenten's priority. She does seem quite smitten with him. I wonder if she will tame him?" Naruto answered with a smirk. I think she has deprived herself for too long, but what about the girl?" "There is something about her that is pulling me to her," Naruto admitted. Sasuke and Shikamaru's eyes widened at the news. In all the years they had known Naruto, he had never felt a pull to any female to their knowledge. Naruto was a powerful demon, one of the 9 great demon lords of this world, and was known as the demon lord Kyuubi, who contained the 9-tailed fox's power within him, carefully chosen by the demon sage himself, like all the great demons within their world. It was common knowledge to those that knew the blonde well that he had traits related to the fox as well as habits, and that would require one mate to bind with for life. Each demon, male and female, knew what it meant to feel a pull towards another. There had been cases with demons and humans throughout time, but demons had much longer lifespans than humans that were scattered throughout the world but were slowly slipping into extinction. I'm going to initiate her, Naruto confided, breaking his two friends from their thoughts. What? Are you sure you should? Sasuke stated, shocked. Naruto, you do understand what that could possibly mean, don't you? Shikamaru asked him. Yes, I do, he simply answered back. Hinata wasn't paying attention to where the woman in front of her was taking her to. She just obeyed, not wanting to cause any problems. Her mind was filled with worry for her cousin and the predicament she was now in. They were now prisoners to demons, and that was all she seemed to have gathered. That blonde-haired demon frightened her. He seemed to consider her very soul, and that unnerved her. When her cousin had disappeared, she had heard their laughter that made her anger boil at how cruel the demons were. The two Hyugas meant no harm, they only needed to escape those that had destroyed their home and clan. Now they were prisoners being held captive to be subjected to whatever horrors the demons had in store for them. Hinata hadn't even registered the fact that she was now in another large room that seemed to be a medical one. Shelves were filled with containers that were labeled with ointments and medicines, all neat and in order. 4 good-sized beds were inside the room, 2 on either side made with clean and fresh bedding. The smell of antiseptic was strong in the air as the woman before her placed on a white long jacket upon herself, grabbing some medical instruments and placing them in her pockets. You are to do as I say, do you understand? Hinata numbly nodded, staring at the floor in defeat. She felt broken-hearted, hating the predicament she now faced. I need you to go over there and strip for me, please. Pardon? Hinata asked, stunned. I need you to take off your clothes so I can assess you and run a few tests. I will not harm you, the pink-haired demon stated calmly. Hinata flushed at having to become naked. What sort of tests was she going to do to her? The thoughts raging in her mind nearly made her pass out in fright. Her body slowly moved to the railed curtain that gave her privacy to undress as she removed the dirty servant robes, leaving her bound chest and panties on, refusing to remove them fully. The brunette took a deep breath as she stepped out. The pink-haired medic took notice that she hadn't appeared fully naked as Sakura had asked her to, but pushed the matter aside. Okay, take a seat here, please. Hinata silently complied as Sakura got to work. Pale lilac eyes watched every move the woman made, noticing her hands that had developed a green glowing energy that hovered just inches away from her body. She watched amazed as cuts and bruises miraculously healed before her very eyes. Doesn't that hurt you? Huh. That around your chest, it looks as though you have bound it too tight. You had best remove it whilst I get you something to change into, Sakura stated, having pointed to her binds wrapped around her chest area. Hinata flushed even more, looking down at her tightly bound chest area in attempts to disguise her womanly assets. She hated the body that seemed to have grown more mature even as she was a young adolescent, trying to disguise the fact by wearing clothing that were slightly bigger to hide them. The very thought of revealing them to strangers that were holding her captive made her feel uncomfortable. She didn't want that, especially if she didn't have anything to replace it with. Sakura returned holding a kimono of a deep shade of blue in color, handing it to her to change into. The brunette accepted it as she immediately covered her bare body after loosening the bind slightly but refusing to remove it completely. Stepping out, now fully covered, apart from her pale slender legs as the kimono was short and came to her mid-thighs. I expect you must be hungry? Sakura asked. Hinata shook her head side to side. She didn't want food, she didn't feel hungry, she just wanted to be alone and get some sleep. Her thoughts were on her cousin, that made her eyes glisten with tears. She just wanted to know if he was still alive. Ano and my cousin Niji is he? Hinata quietly asked, a tremble in her voice. Sakura sighed as she placed her instruments down upon her desk, looking up at the girl who looked lost and broken before her. Sakura was wary of humans after seeing what they had done to her clan. Her parents were also killed by deceitful humans who had lured them to their deaths in hopes of gaining power that had been promised by enemy clans from different villages. Looking at this petite woman before her, Sakura couldn't help but feel sorry for her, no matter how deeply she felt regarding humans. Your cousin is still alive. He has caught the attention of Tenten. He will be fine, Sakura assured her. Hinata felt herself feel relieved and thankful that she was told this news, even if it confused her. To know that he was still alive gave her comfort, and the will to still carry on living for now at least. She nodded and bowed in gratitude to the pinkette, who stared surprised at the action. Thank you, Hinata whispered. Sakura nodded as she led her out of her medical room towards one of the rooms that would be where she stayed until Naruto said otherwise. The girl followed her and made no trouble as she went inside, looking around the bare room, seeing the bed to the one side, but it held no windows, just a small lamp upon a small table and a chair to sit on. I will leave you to rest, Sakura stated softly, as she closed the door, locking it firmly. Hinata stared at the locked door for a few moments, taking in the silence and new smells about the room. Her body felt completely exhausted, as did her mind that was swirling from thoughts of what had occurred throughout the last few days before her life had changed completely. Walking towards the bed, she sat down, feeling the mattress sink in from her weight as she finally laid down upon it. Now that she was alone, her emotions suddenly gave way and she sobbed her heart out, from the losses of lives that she held dear, to the uncertainty of what she was now going to face. She was being held captive by a group of demons, and knew not what to expect in the long run. Her tears fell as her sobs began to decrease, her mind completely shut down as her exhaustion finally claimed her to sleep. Niji opened his eyes, focusing in on his surroundings. His mind was slowly beginning to register that what he had thought was an erotic dream was in fact not a dream but reality itself. He moved his body slightly, feeling something warm and soft pressed against his back. His normal stoic features crumbled in an instant when his cheeks became ablaze with color, as he realized what had taken place only a few hours ago between them. A few hours ago. One moment he was kneeling on his knees with a sharp blade from a kunai pressed against his neck, hearing the words "Your request is granted," and the word "pet" escaped from the demon Lord Kyuubi's own lips. His cousin's small, trembling form in front of him in complete surrender made his heart clench in complete dread and fear. That was his cousin, the only family he had left in the world. He had given his oath to his uncle's last wish that for them both to escape to safety, and yet they had been captured within hours of fleeing their home. He was supposed to protect her, keep her safe from potential dangers and those that would do her harm, even if the situation was dire and his own life would become forfeit. That was his honor-bound duty, and he had failed miserably. Feeling feminine hands grip his shoulders, he suddenly felt his whole body disappear from the large throne room filled with killing intent into another room entirely. His eyes blinked a few times to gather his bearings and new surroundings. The room he now found himself situated in was dark with flickers of shadows from the torches that were burning, placed sporadically about each of the 4 walls. The walls themselves seemed to have an array of various weapons proudly displayed upon them. Niji then realized that he was no longer on a cold hard floor but upon something undeniably comfortable and soft. Taking a look, he was surprised to see himself sat in the middle of a very large bed draped with red sheets. His cheeks felt heat explode upon them, especially when he realized he wasn't alone. His eyes widened as a gasp escaped his own lips at what he could hear in front of him. The sounds of items falling upon the floor got his attention, as he slowly looked up. There he saw the female he fought in the forest, whose kunai not too long ago had pierced the skin on his neck. Tenten the demon huntress stood staring at him with smoldering dark eyes that drank him in entirely. He could only watch bewitched in stunned silence as she peeled off her form-fitting clothes that slipped into a pool around her feet, proudly displaying her womanly assets to him as he could only look on like a gaping fish that had just came out of the water. Untying each of her carefully wrapped buns that flowed down her pale skin like a flow of melted chocolate, she was stunningly beautiful. It made his own breathing come to a standstill. A soft feminine giggle escaped from her red-tinted lips. Her dark-colored eyes locked gazes with his very own. His blush seemed to have intensified as he felt the bed dip from her climbing upon it, crawling upon the red sheets on all 4s, slowly moving towards him like a predator to claim her prey. Niji found himself unable to move. He was frozen on his very spot. His eyes seemed to drink her perfectly formed body in fully, as he found his mouth grow incredibly dry like the parched desert sands under the intense heat from the blazing sun. Tenten herself felt immensely aroused. She could feel her womanly walls tighten inwardly, as the sweet ache built within her. Her excitement was evident, leaving a trail of her juices running down her inner thighs that seemed the surprised, yet handsome Hyuuga staring at her, as she wasted no time by taking off her clothes. It had thrilled her like nothing she had experienced before. Tenten was not a virgin, but she hadn't had sex in such a long time now that it was driving her crazy. She had heard the pleasure-filled moans from her friends that lived here with her, especially from Sasuke and Sakura, who seemed to want to fuck each other senseless each and every night. Sasuke Uchiha, the raven-haired Tengu demon, would tease her frequently to see her flustered face and apparent arousal that was easily picked up due to their demon's senses. She would have loved to wipe that teasing smirk from his face and show him untold pleasures that a human woman such as herself could give him. She had to admit she had been seriously tempted. Sasuke was extremely handsome. His dark raven hair with a bluish tint suited his pale skin. His eyes were as dark as onyx that could spin into red and black patterns in an instant and render you incompetent. Although Sasuke was a demon, she had found herself close to him. He had the attitude she craved for in a man. The fact that he was a demon had never bothered her. She had heard the stories from various human women that were lucky enough to spend the night with a demon male and learned how they had climaxed continuously with untold pleasure. Tenten had wanted to experience that, but had kept to her own kind that through the years were dwindling down to near extinction. More so now due to the great demon war that was still raging on in other parts of their world. However, although tempted by Sasuke's teasing, he was in fact Sakura's lover, and she would never come between them, no matter what heights her desires reached. Since her arrival here, thanks to Naruto's kindness and hospitality, she had grown extremely close to each of them. Through the years hearing each of their stories, she felt their pain of loss, and at times she felt ashamed of how her own kind had contributed to their individual pain. It had shocked her, but it hardly surprised her. Although they were demons, they had always kept their distance from the human civilizations. Until the wars from various demon clans in the countries fought and invaded different lands. The many human settlements were pillaged and destroyed, with the humans either escaping or being killed, or worse, captured, by the invading demons who decimated their life. It was a common occurrence which led to her fighting them and taking bounties from certain demons listed. Until she came into a bloody battle scene and involved herself in the battle, being severely outnumbered and beaten by the bastards who fought without honor, as each demon clan should have. Tenten broke away from her thoughts as she licked her red lips. She came up close to the Hyuuga that had captivated her when she fought him. His fighting style was as graceful as her own unique way of fighting, and that caught her attention. This man named Niji Hyuuga was honorable, and that in itself was a rare trait in their world. When she fought this handsome man, there was something that drew her to him like a moth to the flame. Seeing this handsome man up close like this captivated her completely. His white silver-colored eyes solely looking upon her that made her own body tremble with desire, making her whole body yearn for him, to touch her and caress her with his 2 hands. Licking her lips, she reached past him, grabbing a small blade she kept under her pillow, bringing it towards him, breaking him out of his spell. She watched as his body stiffened, seeing the sharp object twirling within her hand, and took a deep breath that didn't escape her attention. With a flick of her wrist, she cut through his robes, causing him to gasp, as she tore his clothing apart, revealing his firm-toned chest to her viewing pleasure. Wait, what are you doing? Niji stuttered. His face was a shade of crimson. Isn't it obvious? Niji Tenten purred seductively, noticing immediately how well his body reacted. Niji grit his teeth, feeling his own loins stir like crazy. He had never felt so turned on in his life. He was the head of the Hyuuga side branch. The elders had been in talks with him with regards to an impending marriage that would be seen over by his uncle. Most of the elders had wanted Niji to marry his cousin Hinata when she was of age, to bring both branch houses closer together than they ever had been before. Hayashi's true wish was to mend the divide that had occurred on both sides of the family, and bring them together. But the talks had stalled due to the upcoming threat they had just endured. Now all talks of his uncle's dreams lay in waste, as there was no longer a branch, or main family to unite. Now their clan was in ruins, obliterated within a day, leaving just himself and his younger cousin still alive, and he wasn't entirely sure for how much longer. Wait, Niji moaned, his inner thoughts broken in an instant. He looked down, shocked to see his trousers were completely removed, showing his erection, that was already leaking pre-cum from its tip. His cheeks burned even hotter at being so shamelessly exposed in front of a woman he had only just met. His senses went completely over the edge, feeling a soft but firm grip around his hardened length, and her hand moved up and down upon it. Niji's head tilted back in pleasure, his moans escaping his parted lips. He felt her breath fan against his ear. Hearing her moan was sending him crazy. Feels good, doesn't it?" she moaned out. Niji heard her but just couldn't answer her. He grunted, feeling her hand remove itself from his cock, feeling his hands suddenly become free from its spines. Then the feeling of a sharp blade pressed once again against his neck. What? Listen to me, Niji, you are now my pet, rewarded to me by my lord who I owe my life to. If you wish to survive as well as see your cousin again, you will obey my every demand. Besides, you will certainly benefit from this arrangement, Tenten confided to a shocked pair of Hyuuga eyes. Niji was shocked at her words as they began to fully sink in. He was now her pet, rewarded to her by her lord. His thoughts once again were broken, feeling something extremely tight and wet slowly impale itself on his overly sensitive cock. Fuck! Niji hissed, now registering what was going on. Tenten was now firmly seated upon his lap, his cock now fully embedded deep within her tight and wet heat. His eyes rolled back at feeling something so pleasurable, knowing that he had never felt something like this before. Tenten moaned out loud, her whole body trembling as her inner walls trembled and tightened around him. "Oh yes, you feel so fucking good," Tenten moaned in breathless pants. Niji then felt her hips move as his cock reached even deeper inside her. All thoughts that were swirling in his mind lay forgotten as his body succumbed to the many raptures of pleasure that this woman was bringing his body and mind to. Present. His cheeks were still rather hot at the very thought of what had occurred between them. She had certainly opened his eyes to the delights of sexual pleasures, and he remembered how her body writhed in ecstasy from each thrust of his hips that he gave her. The images he could remember from his pleasured haze of images seemed to once again stir his loins, causing him to moan into the pillow. He felt soft hands trail down his chest, heading downward to his hips. Each trail of her fingertips left a trail of blazing fire licking against his skin, causing his body to tremble. Another giggle escaped from her as her warm and wet tongue licked down his shoulder blade and down along his upper arms. "It seems you are still hungry for more of my attention?" Tenten purred. Niji couldn't answer her, and only proceeded to swallow thickly. Naruto was currently in his throne room, seeing Kakashi, Kiba, Sai and Shino stood before him. Choji had arrived back injured, and Sakura immediately set to work on attending his wounds, with Ino assisting her. Sasuke as well as Shikamaru stood to either side of their lord, interested at what had taken place. "What the hell happened, Kakashi?" Naruto ordered. "We were patrolling our borders as you ordered, and we had split up into 3 groups, with Sai taking to the skies to look over the terrains from above. Kiba and Shino went to scout one side as Choji and myself went to scout out the other. Choji and myself were monitoring our borders near the human village that had fallen. I had sent out my hound summons to scout it out further," Kakashi reported. "What did you find?" "According to Pakken, it was being thoroughly searched by Orochimaru's men. They were gathering up items and any valuables that they could find in the buildings that hadn't been completely destroyed," Kakashi replied. "Most probably looking for something? He does have quite the following," Lord Naruto Shikamaru responded. "And there must be a reason for him sending his men in a search through the village ruins, though? That slimy bastard is power obsessed. I have a feeling that he attacked that village so that he could get his hands on an unsealed Hyuuga," Sasuke replied. "Unsealed?" Naruto asked with a raised brow. "Sai, troublesome my lord, the Hyuuga clan are an old clan on the human side, that have been around as long as the demon clans of Senju and Uchiha, including your own clan and many more. However, their clan was divided, one being the main branch and the other being the side branch that were there to protect the main family. Each side branch of the family was sealed with a unique seal called the caged bird seal. Why it was created, I am uncertain, but I suspect it was to protect their bloodline from outsiders," Shikamaru explained. "Interesting, I have never made myself interested in human affairs. Besides Kakashi, how come Choji was injured? What happened to him?" "We encountered some of Orochimaru's hybrids, my lord. There was at least a dozen that had entered our lands. We encountered them on our way back to meet up with the others and had to fight them from proceeding any further into our lands. Choji got injured due to the new experiments that bastard created within them. Whatever they used managed to knock him out and injure him in the process." The blonde growled in anger at the news. Orochimaru was pushing his boundaries, and he wondered why the snake was desperately trying to invade his lands. "I know that once my grandfather had mentioned that we are supposed to be closely related to the Hyuuga, although they are human and my clan were demon. I'm not sure if it was true or not, but my grandfather firmly believed we were distant cousins or something along those lines, but we never investigated the matter further. I do know that Orochimaru is obsessed with my clan's eyes, the Sharingan. Maybe he is after the Hyuuga bloodline, the Byakugan, as well," Sasuke pointed out to the room. "You do have a point, Sasuke," Kakashi replied, thinking on it. "That reminds me. Were both of the Hyuugas sealed?" Naruto asked. "Well, both of them had their foreheads covered. From what I heard, the seal is always placed upon their," Sasuke answered. "Bring them both here," Naruto ordered. "Well, I think Tenny is having fun with her pet. She certainly was last night by the sounds of it," Sasuke smirked. "Don't tell me you were listening at the door, team?" Naruto questioned. "Of course not, I could hear them, that's all. Besides Lord Dobe, I was busy with Sakura," Sasuke retorted. "Fine, Sasuke, I want you to bring the girl to me at once," Naruto ordered. Sasuke nodded as he disappeared in a swirl of black feathers, leaving the others to continue their discussions until he returned with the girl. Sasuke appeared in one of the hallways, heading straight to the infirmary. He immediately walked inside, seeing Choji on one of the beds, heavily bandaged up asleep. Ino was busily throwing the bloodied cloth away as Sakura wiped her brow from the beads of sweat that had gathered. Her green eyes widened slightly at seeing Sasuke enter her working area. "Sasuke-kun?" Sakura stated softly, a hint of pink upon her cheeks. "Lord Naruto has ordered me to bring him the girl. I need the key to her room, Sakura." Sakura reached into her pocket, giving him the key as he immediately turned around and walked out. He hated smelling the antiseptic smells within the room. It reminded him of his parents, and how he watched them suffer in their last moments whilst being treated. Since then, anything relating to medical rooms he couldn't stomach. Even if he was injured, he didn't want to be treated unless Naruto himself knocked him out. He walked quickly towards the room that Sakura had told him where the girl was currently being kept, placing the key into the lock, unlocking the door, which he quickly opened. The room filled with light from the hallway as he saw that the girl was still in bed. Rolling his eyes, he went towards the bed, pulling the blanket back, exposing her small frame that was no longer in dirty servant robes, but a short blue kimono that was probably one of Ino's. Pale lilac-tinted eyes widened as she let out a shocked gasp, immediately sitting up feeling embarrassed. Sasuke looked at the girl intently and noticed that she still had her forehead covered. "You are to come with me, Lord Naruto wants to see you." Hinata swallowed nervously as she nodded and followed behind him. The cool air brushed against her long slender legs that made her cheeks burn from embarrassment at being so underdressed. She was inwardly mortified at having to be seen in what she was currently wearing. Hinata kept her distance but followed the dark-haired man as he led her through the long hallways past the infirmary where she was taken to before she was locked inside her room. Sasuke noticed that she kept herself at a distance, which made him smirk. Just looking at the girl, he could tell she was entirely innocent and unknowing of the world outside her village's walls. Looking at her puffy eyes tinged with a slight red, made the raven-haired demon know she had been crying. The slight smell of salt still lingered in the room when he had stepped inside. Now seeing her in that short kimono that was quite form-fitting was quite a surprise to him, and he wondered how Naruto would react when he saw her. Hinata herself was growing steadily more nervous with each step she took, not really wanting to be in the presence of the tall blonde leader. Her thoughts were on her cousin Neji, and if what that pink-haired woman had told her last night was true. Hinata heard voices in the distance as she cautiously lifted her gaze, seeing the large open archway that she presumed led to where she was heading. The male in front of her had dark black hair that held a tinge of blue when the light hit against it. His complexion was not as pale as her own but was very close. When she had opened her eyes and saw his dark eyes look at her intently, she realized that what she had hoped was an awful nightmare had in fact been real, and this was now her reality. Her stomach twisted in knots at the revelation, as her heart clenched in fear as to what would happen to her now. The uncertainty of what would happen to both her and Neji frightened her terribly. Now she was being brought to that room again where she had last seen her beloved cousin Neji, and had watched in horror as he disappeared in a plume of white smoke along with the female who had a kunai pressed against the main artery of his neck. She inwardly hoped that he was still alive and unharmed. The voices were many